What widely accepted fact do you know is wrong? AskReddit guys, subscribe now, or I will tell your parents the truth. Goldfishes really do not have a memory span of 5 seconds. They actually remember things for months, recognize their owners, and are able to distinguish them from other people. I had 2 goldfish when I was younger. Their names were Paula and Mr. Fishy. When Mr. Fishy died, Paula spent the next couple of days frantically swimming around the tank trying to find him. It was heartbreaking to watch. AWW, that hurts. I love goldfish, they are adorable. NASA spent $$ inventing a pen that worked in space, and the Russians used pencils. Total bollocks. The Fisher Pen Company was independent and developed its space pen with zero investment from NASA. American astronauts began using mechanical pencils in space. Tiny fragments of graphite and graphite dust floating around the spacecraft was not ideal because graphite is conductive. It's also combustible, so everyone was keen to find an alternative. Fisher patented its first zero-gravity pen in 1965, and in 1967 NASA began using it. By 1969 Russia were also buying them for their space missions. Reportedly both NASA and the Soviet Space Company received the same discount for their bulk purchases. Thank you. Thus one is a perfect example of misunderstanding something complicated, the US federal procurement system, and drawing the exact wrong conclusion because of it. The Russians were smarter because they just used a pencil. A similar myth is that the Dodd would deliberately spend $600 on a single hammer. Rather, this was an accounting artifact due to contractors claiming a flat overhead price on a spare parts buy. Split up evenly amongst all the spare parts, the cheap parts look ridiculously overpriced, but the expensive stuff, like engines, look ridiculously cheap. And then we ignore the cheap price on engines and focus only on the expensive hammers. Not only that, NASA is working with some really specific alloys and materials. Things that a normal cheap hammer might damage or contaminate with rust or something. Additionally, a hammer would need to be developed that an astronaut is able to hold, and perhaps some kind of tether to prevent it from departing wistfully into space. Hiring someone who is an expert on what sort of hammers work best on beryllium would definitely raise the cost of the hammer. The point is, it's not just about picking any random hammer off the shelf, it's a whole process to evaluate different types of hammers, the jobs the hammer needs to do, and finding the expertise to decide which hammer is worth the government's money. Which is better, NASA buying one hammer or NASA replacing a hammer every 6 months because they hired a shoddy contractor? The extra layers of bureaucracy, analysis, quality control, testing. All of this adds to the cost. It's easy to say lol $600 hammer, but it's much harder to say this hammer was developed just for this job. It does it perfectly, and they may never need to buy another hammer again. Hell, if they made a $600 super hammer available to the public, I'd buy the out of it. We are here for you during these unprecedented times. I work in higher education. They have been saying this throughout the pandemic. They announced yesterday that staff will not receive their annual raise or bonus. They have also furloughed staff. Faculty, which includes administration, will receive those raises and bonus, and none have been furloughed. Even in the email where they told us we would not receive the raise bonus, it was this shit: we're here for you, we appreciate you, blah, blah, blah. We've learned to savor the moments that were always there. Now go buy Coca-Cola, I feel you. I am a nurse at a university-owned hospital, and the budgets of the hospital and the university are very intertwined. Full stop. In order to refund students' room and board expenses from last semester, they took away a large percentage of our 403(b) employer contribution, and we will not be getting raises for at least 2 years. Upper management has not been affected at all. But yeah, the "we're in this together" emails and "heroes work here" signs definitely make up for that. That cracking your knuckles too often will cause arthritis. This thread reads like a spotter's guide to stuff my mum told me when I was young. My mum still says such stuff by reading it off of WhatsApp forwards. Smooth surfaces in healthy joints combined with the synovial fluid can sometimes make a sort of vacuum that makes the popping noise when it's released, basically like releasing a suction cup. I'm a PT student, please correct me if I'm wrong. Edit. I want to say that with cracking or popping joints there could be multiple, benign, reasons to explain the sounds. A lot of the sounds are ligaments, tendons and sesamoid bones, like your kneecap, making friction noises with the joints clicking over grooves. That said, if you experience pain problems with your joints together with cracking, please see a physiotherapist. A good and targeted exercise program can have a great amount of positive effect on your complaints. That you have to wait 24 hours to report someone missing in the USA. There is no law about waiting, you don't have to. Push to make the police cooperate and list the person missing immediately when you suspect something isn't right. Don't lose precious time, it's extremely important if the person truly is missing. I don't know how that myth came to be, it's way too dangerous. Makes for compelling TV. How else is Jason supposed to go looking for Zoe by himself because the cops won't help? We are experiencing a temporary high volume of phone calls. Your call is important to us. This, and please listen carefully as our options have recently changed. The first is to make people more likely to wait happily. Second is to try and get them to pay attention to the options which haven't been changed in 20 years. As someone who works in a position taking calls all day, both of these tend to, at least with us, be 100% honest. People have an idea that calling a business support will result in a phone ringing at a center with like 100 plus people. The queue was only 4. Why did it take an hour to get to me? In reality, some businesses have hardcore understaffed support. As in, the business I work for has around 10,000 plus customers and a support staff of 4. In regards to the options thing, you would be surprised at how little people seem to care about where they go, and then they get pissed when their randomly selected number can't assist them. What do you mean you can't fix my shit? I called business, right? Well, so this is billing and your issue is tech related. If you would like me to help with billing, we can do that. However, I cannot fix your equipment. This is bullshit. Every day. All day. If you tell the truth, I won't get mad. This is exactly the same as saying if you confess, you won't go in jail. Never be the messenger of bad news at work. You will not get credit for your honesty, only blame for the contents of the message regardless of your level of responsibility. Pete boss, the building is on fire. Boss at the next boss meeting, I'm Pete, set the building on fire. Don't be a Pete. Let some yell fire or just let the building burn. This is a bad corporate culture, only functioning when the stakes are low. That, and at the time the French were using a different sized inch than the English, so his official French height sounded small to the English, who were used to bigger numbers for height. It also doesn't help that when comparing him to the average height of people today, Napoleon would have been short, so when people learned that he was 5'6" inches, or 168 centimeters, they immediately confirmed their belief that he was short. He was considered either average or slightly above average height during his time. That medieval ancient people only lived to be 32 years old, and at that age, they were considered ancient. That estimate is an average, which means it accounts for high infant-child mortality. Lots of ancient people lived to their 80s and older. If you made it to 30, chances are good you're making it another 30 plus years. I like the average for a Roman senator, so someone with a pretty solid life, was 69. P.S. Keep it classy, Reddit. Yeah, even in the modern world 60-70 is when major health problems creep in pretty fast. Without medicine I can definitely imagine that being a common death age. Also that everyone in the Middle Ages was getting married at 12. Not true. You could have a wedding arranged as an infant, but marriage would generally not happen until late teens. Even then, that's only royalty and nobility. The average serf didn't own land and therefore never had a legal marriage at all. Peasants would just start cohabitating and making babies. Clarification, I'm talking pre-1300s. Plague happens and people start owning shit. SMH. Interesting fact about this idea, there's always the idea that women could marry once they menstruated. For us that's insane because that's like 11 or 12. When realistically back then women didn't start menstruating until their late teens. Schizophrenia has nothing to do with a split personality. There is also a pretty big difference between someone being moody and someone who has bipolar disorder. Drives me crazy when someone says that someone is so bipolar if they change their minds often or are in a bad mood. People generally don't know about the severity of the ups and downs. See you Reddit guys, and don't forget, please subscribe or I will tell your parents the truth.